Do me a favor, hit that like button as you guys come in. Say what's up in the chat for me, guys. Definitely hit that like button. Make sure that you share your opinion in the chat like we do over here every single night. Normal rules of engagement as per usual. Make sure you're respectful in the chat. Keep your comments short, respectful. Don't flag the AI mod. Please do not disrespect any of my subscribers, my supporters, or my moderators, because that's the only thing that will get you banned and or censored on the channel. I appreciate you. Don't do that. And welcome to the daily live stream. I got a lot of cool clips for us to watch tonight. Happy Wednesday to you guys. I appreciate you guys rocking out with me on the corner. Make sure you hit the like button. Spam the like button, guys. Share the live stream. Let's get into the first clip of the live stream. Today we're going to go... All right, let's do Joe Rogan first. Joe Rogan calls ICE Gestapo. He has something to say about their actions. So let's take a listen.
No matter if you have money or not, I still recommend buying this. 9 out of 10 car owners don't know.
Not depend on defending Donald Trump and his administration doing things that are indefensible.
Here is how podcaster Joe Rogan described it.
You don't want militarized people in the streets just roaming around, snatching people up, many of which turn out to actually be U.S. citizens that just don't have their papers on them. Are we really going to be the Gestapo? Where's your papers? Is that what we've come to?
That has also become...
Now, here's what I thought was funny. A lot of people were like, why is Joe Rogan talking like that? People forget Joe Rogan used to be very, very, very liberal at one point in time. I would go as far as to say it's not that he's not now. Maybe just that the liberals aren't very popular because of some of their recently adopted views. But yeah, this is normal Joe Rogan, I would say.
A big
U.S. citizens that just don't have their papers on them? Are we really going to be the Gestapo? Where's your papers? Is that what we've come to?
That has also become a big part of this so-called enforcement. I mean, Minneapolis is not a huge place, okay? And they are absorbing thousands of federal officers, more than any other deployment that they've done so far. And we are seeing these encounters where you're seeing federal officers, maybe ICE agents, maybe Border Patrol, walking down the street, stopping people, sometimes because they look Somali or they look brown or whatever it is. This is according to those people who were stopped, and asking them, where are your papers? Show me your papers. Where were you born? That's the stuff that we're seeing. And Americans like Joe Rogan are concerned about it.
And I think part of it is, look, Joe Rogan's identity does not depend on defending Donald Trump and his administration doing things that are indefensible. And I see people all the time bending themselves on TV, bending themselves into all sorts of pretzel shape because they subsist from being a Trump supporter, and that's all they've got. Joe Rogan, I think, is speaking out of conviction, is speaking out of what he is seeing. And I think it's reflective of what a lot of Americans feel right now. People are showing up at the streets because they are pissed off at what is happening in our country. It is heartbreaking to see these images in America. We are the country that's supposed to be an example for the rest of the world. And the things that are happening in our streets are the type of things that happen in these third world countries. And they do bring all sorts of bad memories when you see these masked men targeting people. And it's not just Minnesota. I mean, we remember the woman who got pulled out of the street in Boston by masked men. We have seen pregnant women dragged. In Minnesota, we saw 2 young teenagers who were working at Target, like so many of our children do.
American citizens.
Have a job while going to school, being pulled out, while screaming, I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm a U.S. citizen, because they look Latino and they were Latino. That is un-American and unacceptable, and good for Joe Rogan for standing up and denouncing it. More of Trump supporters, if they want him to be a good president, should be doing the same.
Let me play
So here's where this got controversial, because so many people on another channel I watched, they were saying how Anna used to be so conservative, and now, she's saying things like this, and it was kind of cringy and hard for them to watch. But I mean, she is where she feels the most comfortable at, and right now she feels a little bit more comfortable, more towards the left, and she can make that decision.
In Minnesota, we saw 2 young teenagers who were working at Target, like so many of our children do.
American citizens.
Have a job while going to school, being pulled out, while screaming, I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm a U.S. citizen, because they look Latino and they were Latino. That is un-American and unacceptable, and good for Joe Rogan for standing up and denouncing it. More of Trump supporters, if they want him to be a good president, should be doing the same.
Let me play what he said about the Renee Good video that we've been discussing. Listen.
Not only will we buy your house, but we are so confident in what we do that we guarantee to get you the cash.
It's complicated, obviously, but it's also very ugly. To watch someone shoot a U.S. citizen, especially a woman, in the face when people say it's...
Dude, and that's what I was saying. I'm like, okay, I get, like, let's watch it frame by frame and let's do all of this. But I literally thought this was insane. How I'm like, so no one cares that an American citizen is being painted as a domestic terrorist because ICE is freaking ridiculous sometimes and trigger happy. I'm like, okay, Joe Rogan, I see, was the only one to go on the record and say, okay, not only is it a U.S. citizen, but it's a woman. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, this is what I'm saying. Like, why is nobody saying anything about this? But I'm not going to lie to you guys. If you watch some of the black YouTube content creators that focus on, like, pro-black content, they'll tell you exactly why it's happening. Like, that's exactly why I keep them on the channel, and I watch them if you guys don't know who they are, so you can follow them for yourselves, because they'll talk about this. Like, the amazing Lucas, he's been doing a good job at covering this. He's so, ridiculously blunt sometimes, but he just basically comes out and on his thumbnail says, white people realize that you could be killed and treated like a black person or something like that. And I just thought to myself, wow, like, that is what we're seeing. They literally killed this woman, shot her in the face. And then, like, instead of taking any type of accountability, like, hey, maybe ICE is kind of out of control because of what happened. It's like, nope, she was a domestic terrorist. And I'm like, are you kidding me? How was this woman a domestic terrorist and we didn't know her name up until the day she got shot? Isn't that convenient?
Justifiable because the car hit him. It seemed like she was kind of turning the car away.
Now, Joe, what was really striking to me about this Quinnipiac poll, 53% said it was unjustified for the ICE agent to shoot Renee Good. But I was also really surprised by how this has penetrated. 82% of registered voters say they saw that video. So you're talking almost universal impressions of what happened there. Is it, I don't know, are Republicans misreading the situation or risking misreading the situation?
Look, if anyone saw last segment, right, I had no problem defending the officer, and I think Joe Rogan's factually wrong about his assessment. But I am a big Joe Rogan fan, and I listen all the time. And he is really emblematic of one of the most successful things Trump did in the campaign. It was to engage podcasters and win a lot of people who listen to that type of forum. I have a conversation in my head with Joe Rogan for hours every week. I'm a big fan, right? I talk to him. So when I hear him challenging something that I believe, or my gut reaction to something, I actually listen to him. So I do think this is a problem for Trump because I think he is a very good barometer of where people stand. Again, this instant, he might be factually wrong on. I think he is. But he is a good barometer of where a lot of Trump supporters are. And I would have, they have the Waffle House indicator for a hurricane. Like if the Waffle House is closed, there should be a Joe Rogan indicator.
All right, with us now, CNN political commentators Karen Finney and David Urban. And friends, what I'd like to do is not relitigate the video or the events. I actually want to talk about how they're landing in comments like the ones David just made by Joe Rogan, who seems to be saying, I support the president's immigration effort notionally. I do not like what I'm seeing on the ground, though, he seems to be saying. How pervasive do you think that opinion is?
Yeah, John, listen, I think it is very pervasive, right? Americans overwhelmingly voted, one of the president's strongest suits, Americans overwhelmingly voted for this president, if you look at the numbers and reasons given, to secure the border and crack down on kind of the sieve that was the border under the Biden administration. And this administration effectively sealed that border up and did that. And then the president promised to go after the bad hombres and the drug dealers and get those people out of America. And you know, there's a lot of support for that in America. What there isn't support for, and the polling bears this out. This isn't David Urban's opinion. This is the polling. It bears out that people do not want to see what you're seeing on your screen right now. They do not want to hear what Joe Rogan is saying. They don't want to see masked men geared up like walking down the streets of America, asking people for their papers, throwing them on the ground, zip tying people who are doing sheetrock,
I've said time and time again, I think that's where we're seeing the problem, right? Where people just don't like the way, like, you guys know the infamous saying, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. I think people just don't appreciate the way that they've seen ICE handle certain situations. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm against ICE and I think they should, you know, like, go away and they all have done wrong necessarily. I'm just saying, like, because we have so much access to excess and we can see so much of what's happening versus, you know, a couple of years ago, all of the same thing could be taking place, but there would be no social media. So I think because we've had just so much access to it, that's the reason why people are so disgruntled about ICE and now even attacking them sometimes.
Partners, nannies, they don't want to see that, right? That's not what they voted for. And so it is really hurting this president in the numbers on an area where he was strongest, on immigration, strongest. Now it's becoming a weaker point. Karen knows this. President Obama deported lots of folks, but he did it in a completely different way. The Obama administration grabbed lots of folks who just came across the border, people who hadn't really integrated themselves in the communities, hadn't become people's neighbors. And, you know, surprisingly or not surprisingly, people don't like it when ICE shows up in their neighborhood and take away people that they have relationships with. The Obama administration was very effective because they snatched people didn't really know. And in this case, neighborhoods see this happening and they don't like it. So I think the tactics need to be addressed.
Do you know what happens in the first 20 minutes of the stock market opening? That's when I make most of my trades. It's not magic.
It's just factually true, Karen.
It's not just that. Well, you don't even know what I'm about to say, David. So why don't you let me talk? You know, it's not just that this idea that somehow there's a difference between. It's not just taking people that people know. It is the violence. It is the terrorizing of.
We just have to take a moment to stop and look at how ridiculous this headline looks. This headline says 6 prosecutors quit because they want to dig into Renee Good's, what is it, partner, spouse? What are they saying? Widow. 6 prosecutors quit over push to investigate. 6 prosecutors quit over push to investigate Renee Good's widow. I'm just like, dude, are you guys good? Like, you don't have nothing better to do. This is the stupidity that we're dealing with. And 6 of them quit because they know it's dumb.
Communities. There's a story in USA Today. A couple was getting back from a cruise. They're in Miami. The ICE or Border Protection comes into their cabin, hauls them out. The gentleman of the couple, they're both American citizens. He's a Coast Guard veteran. I mean, it's the violence that people are really reacting to. And David is right. I mean, this is really, people are very aware of this story, and they're very aware of other stories where they're seeing this armed militia essentially acting as though Americans have no rights. We have the right to ask someone to see their badge, who they are. But these ICE officials are acting as though you don't have that right. And they're smashing car doors, ripping people out of their cars, even when individuals are saying, wait, I'm an American citizen. Let me get my ID. That is part of it. It's about the way they are conducting this far beyond, it's not just taking nannies and taking, day laborers. It is now, and we saw an American citizen get shot in the face. So it's as traumatizing, frankly, as the George Floyd murder was so many years ago.
I do want to know, I think you guys are agreeing basically here. So let's just take a minute to acknowledge that, even as, you know, maybe start off as a treatment. Yeah, let me just put up some of the numbers that David Urban was talking about here. Do you think that...
I don't know if you guys saw last week. I purposely didn't cover it on the channel here because I didn't get a chance to dig into it more. But there were some claims about a week and a half ago that ICE was dragging a pregnant woman like across the ground. Do you guys know if that person was actually pregnant and if it was actually a woman? I didn't dig into that. Normally I bring that stuff to the live stream with you guys like every single night. But because like I didn't get a chance to really look at it and I didn't know if the woman was actually pregnant or if it was even a woman, I didn't bother covering it. But if you guys saw it, drop it in the chat like if that was something that they actually did.
Minneapolis shooting was justified. Justified 35%, not justified 53%. That's according to a brand new Quinnipiac poll. And then approval of ICE in general, approve 40%, disapprove 57%. And once again, I go back to just the idea in the culture now, even among people who may be more supportive of the goals here. You know, Zach Bryan has a brand new album out, you know, the biggest country singer there is practically, fills stadiums. And I just don't know Zach Bryan's politics one way or another, but he comments on things being too woke, plenty. He's got this line in this song. The song's been out for a while, but it was just released in the album. I just want to play it right now.
And house is going to come, bust down your door, try to build a house, no bills no more, we got a telephone, kids are all scared and all.
So who is this on, David? Who needs to change this, David, if it is a problem?
John, I think this needs to start at the top. I think the president needs to be aware or made more aware that maybe the numbers are going to play out. They'll continue to have polling that shows that the American people don't like this. Listen, when you lose Joe Rogan, right, you got a problem. And I hope the White House takes this to heart, that people don't want to see this type of behavior from ICE. Listen, everybody wants to get the bad guys out of our country. Everybody wants to fix the immigration crisis in America. But what is playing out in the streets, to Karen's point, across America, is not something that seems American, right? The people who came here illegally, we need to deport them, but there's a way to do that, and it doesn't appear that the current situation is making things better. And listen, we've got midterms coming up. Do you think that anybody who's watching this thinks that Republicans should get more power or less power? And you know, these things are all are super important.
Your health deserves more than guesswork. At Prenuvo, our whole body MRI scans for hundreds.
At least 6 top prosecutors in Minnesota are resigning in protest of how the Trump administration is handling last week's ICE-involved shooting in which an ICE agent killed 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good. This includes Joe Thompson, who served as acting U.S. attorney in Minnesota. A source says this follows days of pressure to focus the DOJ investigation not on the actions of the ICE agent who shot and killed Renee Good, but to focus the investigation on Good and others around her. The New York Times reporting this includes Good's widow. And indeed, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche today released a statement saying that the Justice Department does not believe there's evidence to back a criminal investigation into the ICE officer. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz called the resignations a huge loss, writing on X, quote, "It's also the latest sign that Trump is pushing nonpartisan career professionals out of the Justice Department, replacing them with his stance," unquote. Thompson, by the way, the acting U.S. attorney, previously led the office's effort to tackle social services fraud in the state. That's an issue that's high on the Trump administration's priority list. We're learning other resignations are also possible as prosecutors weigh how to respond to this pressure from their superiors in Washington, D.C. At the same time, protests in Minneapolis continue to escalate. Today, law enforcement agents fired pepper balls as crowds blew whistles and shouted, "ICE out now." CNN crews on the scene say agents surged into the area with at least 15 different large SUVs as agents returned to their vehicles. Flashbangs were also fired at the crowd of protesters. Some protesters seen throwing snowballs at agents. This is, of course, Minnesota in January. Around 1,000.
Yeah, see, and that's what I'm saying. Like, people were getting mad that they're like, look at how the ICE agents are just intentionally spraying people in the face. But I'm like, people are intentionally throwing snowballs, destroying their vehicles, throwing things at them. This is why they're getting the reaction they're getting.
More U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents are expected to deploy to Minneapolis. That's on top of 2,000 federal agents deployed to the area already. In a long Truth Social post earlier today, President Trump defended ICE agents, writing, quote, "Fear not, great people of Minnesota, the day of reckoning and retribution is coming," unquote. Let's get right to CNN's Ryan Young, who's on the ground in Minneapolis. And Ryan, you and your crew were caught in the middle of some of the unrest this afternoon. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we were caught right in the middle of that, Jake. But right before I tell you about that, I want to show you this scene right here. This is the people who are left outside the federal building. These folks are still angry and energized. They've been yelling at the federal cars that go by. They've been trying to take video of the people inside those cars. But let us show you this video from earlier today. This is what we saw. We saw the whistles. We heard people screaming. When we ran that direction, we saw this ICE action happening. We saw flashbangs, and they used irritant to try to disperse this crowd. It happened so suddenly. Hundreds of agents in this crowd trying to wrestle certain people out of their cars. At some point, we saw at least 3 people being detained. But at the same time, these federal agents were spraying themselves with that irritant. So we saw several agents getting sprayed with that irritant, trying to react to it. As these protesters, some using their bodies to try to stop them from making the arrest. We're talking about the snowballs. They definitely used that to try to stop them. And there were people who physically tried to jump on some of the cars that the agents were using to try to get away from that neighborhood. After that, though, this area that was near where that shooting happened with Renee Good, it went back to being peaceful, but it was energized with more people coming and surging into the neighborhood. This is, though, the federal building where a lot of people feel those agents are. You can see them standing, some in the street, some trying to block traffic. And when they do see people they believe are ICE agents, they sometimes physically try to step into the street to stop them as well. But today's action, I can tell you, Jake, was the most energized and physically aggressive that we've seen from both sides, with the hundreds of agents surging into that neighborhood today, people running in the alleys and trying to get away from the situation. So many questions about what happens next. Let's not forget, more federal agents in the area now than police officers on the street.
All right, Ryan Young, thanks so much. Let's discuss all of this with CNN's Priscilla Alvarez, who covers immigration issues expertly for us, and CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig. Ellie, let me start with you. At least 6 top prosecutors resigning in Minnesota. The New York Times reports it's because they felt they were pressured to investigate the widow of Renee Nicole Good, the woman that was shot and killed by the ICE officer last week. What's your take on that?
Jake, if that proves out, it's an utter outrage. If the Department of Justice has chosen to focus their investigation not on the actions of the officer, not on the actions of Renee Good at the scene of the fatal shooting, but rather on the widow of the deceased, that is indefensible. First of all, whatever the widow of Renee Good may have done, what her associations may have been, is completely and totally irrelevant to the question of whether this was a justified legal self-defense shooting by the ICE officer. Second of all, prosecutors get leads on cases from all different places. Sometimes a cooperator or an informant will give you leads. Sometimes you'll read a story in the newspaper. But to get a lead based on a person who was fatally shot and say, now let's look at that person's widow to see if they broke the law, it's utterly indefensible. And I think it lends context to why these prosecutors chose to resign.
Well, the White House press secretary referred to the deceased, Renee Good, as a, quote, deranged lunatic. So it's not as though empathy is in excess supply over at the White House. Priscilla, what do you know about what's happening behind the scenes at the Department of Homeland Security?
Yeah, Jake, look, there's mixed emotions at the Department of Homeland Security among these agents. Some are frustrated with this operation, with this mission. Others support it. And I'm talking here about the 3,000 now agents who have deployed to Minneapolis from all over the country. The 2 agencies that I'm talking about here are Immigration and Customs Enforcement, involved in that shooting last week, and U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Now, I am told that they are doing targeted operations in Minneapolis, meaning that they know who they're going after. But these are 2 agencies who have had simmering feuds and tensions over the years. And if people are noticing that there's different tactics on the ground in Minneapolis, the reason is because each of these agencies tend to take a different approach in how they do immigration enforcement. For example, ABP, typically on the U.S.-Mexico border. So it creates this confusing situation and can lend itself to those feuds reigniting in this city at a time when there are thousands of officers there. But I do want to note, Jake, we should take a step back here, because what is remarkable about what was happening in Minneapolis and Minnesota is that this is the president's immigration vision centering in one place. Take it in totality. You have stripping federal funds, or the threat to do that, the threat to denaturalize the Somali nationals that are in Minnesota, flooding the zone with agents, sending more prosecutors to prosecute those U.S. citizens who are impeding on law enforcement. If you look at everything that the administration is doing, this is the playbook that they have wanted since the early days, and that they are now doing in Minneapolis, and what they want to continue doing in other blue cities.
Yeah, Ellie, this is the latest instance of the Justice Department and the FBI continuing to hemorrhage experienced veterans and career prosecutors because of the way they are doing business. We remember when there were those mass resignations after that deal, that sketchy deal with Mayor Eric Adams was struck. All those prosecutors in New York just resigned because they didn't like what was being done. What does this mass resignation, these 6 prosecutors in Minnesota, what does that say to you?
Well, Jake, just for perspective, the entire U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Minnesota has about 70 prosecutors. So when the number 2 person and 6 total prosecutors resign, that's 10% of that office leaving in protest in one fell swoop. And broader perspective here, if you think of the loss of talent and experience that's happened at DOJ, people who've been fired or pushed out over the last year. You mentioned the Eric Adams case. Several experienced prosecutors left then. Prosecutors were forced out over their refusal to indict Jim Comey and Letitia James in the Eastern District of Virginia. You had prosecutors, anyone who touched the Jack Smith prosecution was fired. Anyone, FBI agent or U.S. attorney who worked on a January 6th prosecution has been pushed out. So we're talking about dozens upon dozens of prosecutors, hundreds.
And I mean, he has a point there. We watched this happen. Like, no matter who picked it up, no matter who tried to do what, we watched them experience some type of censorship, some type of banning, some type of deplatforming. So we really can't push back on that. He is right about this part. It's just annoying because it's like they should be able to express what they want to express, yet we see the censorship and the banning happening.
Hundreds of experienced FBI agents, and DOJ is no different than any other organization, whether you're talking about a law firm, a bank, a media organization, a football team. If you lose that much talent all at once, it's going to show in the actual performance of that organization.
Yeah, and that organization is staffed and was tasked with keeping the American people safe. Priscilla Alvarez, Ellie Honig, thanks to both of you.
So people ask me all the time, life is so uncertain right now, the waves of life.
All right, guys, let's go to the next clip. My bad, guys. I was looking for that clip for you. We got Nick Fuentes, shout out to him, and Sneako, shout out to him. And they are going back and forth, having some type of dialogue, monologue, and then listening to one another about Venezuela. So let's take a listen.
Glaring that the U.S. dollar is going to face. See what our old boy Nick said yesterday.
How do you feel about Sneako's hard stance on Venezuela intervention? Seems to be in line with others like Glenn Greenwald, Dave Smith, and others. Ignore the hints in the monologue.
Yeah, I like Sneako, but I disagree with him vehemently. And I really respect Glenn Greenwald. I really like him a lot. I really like Dave. He's great. I like all of them.
And Dave Smith, man. Dave Smith is one of the only people really standing strong on being anti-war. Has not sold out on that. And I love what he's doing, trolling Dan Bongino like that. Dan Bongino is crashing out. Former deputy director of the FBI cannot stand one comedian. One Jewish comedian in New York City is all it takes for Dan Bongino to block all of Twitter
and lose his mind slowly. But I mean, you really deserve it. I mean, I don't wish anybody's downfall, but after covering up for that, you do deserve backlash.
David's a libertarian. Glenn Greenwald, he's liberal. Like, he's a left-wing guy.
Is he?
Sneako is sort of a left-leaning guy. And
this is what I'm talking about, bro. I'm left-leaning. So look, when the Hassan fans see me in New York, they say, and this is the old Sneako. Like, dude, what happened to the old guy before you went down the alt-right red pill pipeline? I'm like, what do you mean? Well, tell me what you mean specifically, because I want to... And they're like, shh, they get mad. I'm like, dude, you yelled at me. Explain what you said. Sorry, my bad. And then they fold because they don't have any points. They don't know what to say. I'm too lib for the alt-right and too right-wing for the libtards, but just real enough to get banned everywhere. I'm too real for this world. What did Tyler, the Creator, say? Too white for the black kids, too black for the white? I'm every race. I'm too Asian for the black people. I'm too white for black nationalists to say I hate black people. I'm too brown, too Asian for the white supremacists that they say I hate white people. I guess I'm too Muslim for America. They think that I hate this country because I'm just here. I'm just chopped liver in every group. Being me is so hard, bro. No, but real talk, it was Earl Sweatshirt who said that. That's been my whole life. That's been my whole life. Not only ethically, but now politically. Because again, I'll repeat this, I reject political association. I don't think that you should align yourself with these ideologies of right wing, of left, of socialist, of fascist. All of it's stupid to me because there's going to be hypocrisy everywhere, and the best thing to do is just follow God. Just follow that. That's going to be morally consistent. God's not going to mess up. God's not going to disappoint you. God is going to make sense, right? And whenever you align too far with anything, you're gonna find yourself with contradictions. Like yesterday, I saw Nick was talking about the Venezuela regime change, and he's saying, if you don't take pride in these helicopters going in, then I don't like you. And I understand that. There is like the Call of Duty American in me that sees that and like, this is fucking cool. But it's also a sin to be prideful, right? It's one of the 7 deadly sins. So seeing that and taking pride that you're invading, that you're taking your president, capturing him, yes, it's cool, is an aura, undeniably. But that's why I think the pride can distract you and prevent you from seeing the bigger picture. Yes, it's cool, but I think thinking it's cool will blind you from the fact that it doesn't really benefit us, that we haven't seen any benefit, right? $1.8 billion of oil is not really, it doesn't do anything at all so far.
I'm right-wing. I'm a realist. I always have been a foreign policy realist, as long as I've been doing the show. Even when it comes to Iran, I don't want regime change in Iran, but I don't want Iran to have nukes, you know?
I don't want Iran to have nukes, but Israel has nukes. I mean, I understand his point of view, but this is similar to what Ben Shapiro is saying. Thank you for the 10. Blonde Mexican Ben Shapiro will agree with you when USA debt reaches $50 trillion. I mean, we're at 38 trillion. It's inevitable that we're going to hit 38 trillion. So invest in Bitcoin right now. I want to talk about that Federal Reserve thing. That's going to be later on in the show, but right now.
That was kind of crazy. I did get to watch, not the clip in its entirety, but when Sneako was like, Bitcoin's at like 92 right now, and the projection for it by 2030 is like 300K. And I was like, yeah, that's actually not too horrible. Except I remember when Bitcoin wasn't even 100, like close to what it is right now. So it just makes me want to cringe sometimes when I talk about Bitcoin. But yeah.
Now's the perfect time to invest in Bitcoin. I think it's like 92K right now. I just bought a bunch. I just got a bunch more because it's like Trump is trying to fire and arrest everybody in the Fed who is, you know, they don't want to budge on the interest rates. So there's clearly a problem, a long-term problem. It's glaring that the U.S. dollar is going to face. And so Bitcoin is preventable from that. It's the first crypto, most reliable. I've made a lot of money on it. And look at the predictions. Like the predictions are by 2030, Bitcoin's going to be at $300,000 minimum, right? Now's the time to get that. So
Stop. If you are looking for the top AI, tech, and trending stocks, we can send you free alerts to your phone. We do the analysis so that you don't have to.
So when it comes to I have always been in favor of America pursuing its strategic interests.
How do you? Yeah, see, look, I understand him saying that he doesn't think Iran should have nukes, but it's inevitable that other world powers are going to have nukes, right? It's going to happen. So if you want to stay consistent, you should say nobody in the world, because if you're going to put America first and have the patriotic position, then nobody should have nukes. Then we should invade Russia, we should invade China, we should prevent anybody from developing real technology. And obviously that's impossible, it's not going to happen. But why isolate Iran as this? Why are we isolating Iran? It's because they first off, we can do it. We can invade Iran. We can put regime change in. It's a war that will probably be won by U.S. and Israel, but it's really because they just don't want, Israel doesn't want Iran to have nukes because they're the last country posing a threat. That's the bigger picture. Iran does not care about America. Iran, they don't, like the propaganda is that, is death to America, death to America, la, 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 la. Like a guy in the sand shaking up AK-47.
Yo, Sneako be tripping. It's like I can't even get mad at him because I know why he's using that analogy. It's just crazy.
Like a Wookiee in Star Wars, and then you find out, wait, no, that's a fucking IDF soldier doing this. What's going on here? I thought that was a Persian guy. That was Tommy Robinson dressed up in a. Don't tell me Tommy Robinson was shaking that AK. I thought it was. So, I think it's to see the bigger picture. But I understand what he's saying. I understand. You know, that they don't want to budge on the interest rates. So there's clearly a problem, a long-term problem. It's glaring that the U.S. dollar is going to face, and so Bitcoin is preventable from that. It's the first crypto, most reliable. I've made a lot of money on it, and look at the predictions. Like the predictions are by 2030, Bitcoin's going to be at $300,000 minimum. All right, now's the time to get that. So
when it comes to, I have always been in favor of America pursuing its strategic interests.
How do you? Yeah, see, look, I understand him saying that he doesn't think Iran should have nukes, but it's inevitable that other world powers are going to have nukes, right? It's going to happen. So if you want to stay consistent, you should say nobody in the world, because if you're going to put America first and have the patriotic position, then nobody should have nukes. Then we should invade Russia, we should invade China, we should prevent anybody from developing real technology. And obviously that's impossible, it's not going to happen. But why isolate Iran as this? Why are we isolating Iran? It's because first off, we can do it. We can invade Iran. We can put regime change in. It's a war that will probably be won by U.S. and Israel. But it's really because they just don't want, Israel doesn't want Iran to have nukes because they're the last country posing a threat. That's the bigger picture. Iran does not care about America. Iran, they don't, like the propaganda is that, is death to America, death to America, la, 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 la. Like a guy in the sand shaking up AK-47 like a Wookiee in Star Wars, and then you find out, wait, no, that's a fucking IDF soldier doing this. What's going on here? I thought that was a Persian guy. That was Tommy Robinson dressed up in a. Don't tell me Tommy Robinson was shaking that AK. I thought it was. So, I think it's to see the bigger picture. But I understand what he's saying. I understand his perspective on it and Monroe Doctrine. But we'll see. Time will tell if this really does benefit America. Let's see what else.
Sneako paraded you around on stream for views. Milked you for every second.
Headphones are messed up. What do you guys think? Keep going, Sneako? No, I mean, it makes sense. Like that his foreign policy is right-wing, fascist, that we should have our own interests. I get that completely. But I just don't see how it's going to change anything for, anything in a positive way.
Now he LARPs as a political commentator at Goyer's. I'm going to take you to every take on Venezuela, undermining your geopolitical take.
So this guy's saying, Sneako paraded you around on stream for views, milked you every second, now he LARPs as a political commentator at Goyer's, and the JQ to every take on Venezuela. I mean, look.
Nah, I don't know if I agree with that part. I mean, they do well together on live stream. I've covered it a couple times here with you guys, and then we've covered it after when they weren't on anymore. So I wouldn't say Sneako was milking Nick for views, because Nick's been deplatformed for some time. Like, yeah, he is growing, but even now with a 6-7% approval rating, I don't think that's what was happening.
Dude, you're mad about this, but Netanyahu immediately tweeted about this, just like how he immediately tweeted about Charlie Kirk. Like they are definitely involved. The Zionists are the ones saying that we needed to get rid of their proxy to Iran, that they have connections to Hezbollah. So you can't. It's like, oh, you just saying adding Zog to it. You can't talk about American foreign policy without talking about it. Also, this guy's saying I paraded him around for views, dude. Look, bro. How many times do I have to say the same thing about? Who's the first one really platforming this guy? A lot of the people, I understand the corporate perspective. Like, they don't like the fact that a brown guy, I'll just own it out, that a brown guy is speaking and, you hate America, you hate white people. But, no, I did more for the movement than you, bro. I did more for your movement than you ever did. I was the one taking those risks and taking that heat. It's just, there's a lack of, not that I need the appreciation, but there's a lack of like understanding for it. And you can understand there was back and forth in the past because it's like, dude, I stuck my neck out for your guy, my friend, and then you guys just completely, when shit hits the fan, niggas is not sliding.
If you're watching this right now, I pray that you don't just scroll past. I hope that when your heart hears that 1 in 3 people on this earth do not have access to clean water, you don't just feel bad. I hope you actually do something about it, because right now, you can make that change. With just $100, you can give 100 people clean water for 5 years. Humanity is on the ground, bringing real solutions, wells, hand pumps, solar power filtration systems to those who need it the most. Donate now to humanity.
But probably couldn't even recall the Cuban Missile Crisis or how Monroe Doctrine is relevant here. He's low IQ.
What is this?
I know the Monroe Doctrine. I know John Quincy Adams. I know the Cuban Missile Crisis was really about the Soviet Union during JFK's presidency. It's like, they'll say this stuff. A lot of these people will say like, oh, you're low IQ. Siegel's low IQ. He thinks he's a political commentator. But then these are the people that will always just tweet and then never show their face or do it. If you're smarter than me, you're higher IQ than me, why don't you go load up the camera, turn on OBS, and do the political stream yourself? If you're so much smarter, they don't. They don't do it. They'll say that I could be doing this, I should be doing that. I should be like, dude, okay, if you're better at this than me, why don't you do it? If you care about your country that much, you're that much more of a patriot than me, then clearly you know that having a voice is one of the biggest ways that you could cause a problem and do damage to the powers that be. But you don't. You sit there and you criticize. And I'm not saying obviously, I don't want to get dark, so I don't want to get this, I don't want to get that. If you're so high IQ, you'd be able to figure it out anyway. So.
Raiding me around. We did a collab. We had a discussion, and he's my friend. I like him. I like to do his stream. I like to do his content. It's good for me. I get an audience with his people. It's good for him. My people watch the video. I'm not going to tell you why collaborations are good for a creator. And look, we have a disagreement. We have these discussions. I think it's an interesting conversation. We're two very...
Jay, you fuck with the beard? It's like we swapped. I got the clean-shaven Catholic 1950s James Dean look, and he got the... Brother! Put America first, inshallah! He has the... It looks like it's kind of looking Syrian.
Different people. He's Muslim and from New York and not white. He's Haitian. What is he? Filipino? Hungarian Jew.
Okay, you had to throw that in there. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. 12%. I can't remember. No, 12% Hungarian Jew, correct. You got me.
And he's come from the red pill thing, and I come from where I come from, so it's just an ongoing conversation. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah, brother. And this is what's important.
Like that. I like the beard though. I think it looks different. I wonder if he's gonna keep it. I'm like, he actually doesn't look. He looks a little more normal with the beard. But yeah, I think that Nick did a good job answering this. He said I didn't know how he was gonna answer it because Nick sometimes he's just like a loose cannon. But he's like my friend. It works out good for us. Collabs are good, so I think he did well answering this. I didn't know what he was gonna say honestly.
And why I respect him so much. You need to be able to have disagreements without losing your friendship. People don't see, this is why so many normies, NPCs, they're like, never talk about religion or politics because then you're going to disagree. And this is what low IQ people do. It's funny that they'll say that about me, but this low IQ people are not able to communicate with somebody that they don't agree with. This is what liberals do. This is why they don't debate. This is why they can't have conversations. When they come up to me and say that I went down the all-white pipeline, I'm like, what? What did I say? What did I do? What do you disagree with? And they just literally malfunction. They are incapable of having dialogue with somebody that they're different than. But I think you should have relationships and talk to people that are different than to see how you're able to challenge yourself, how you're able to have interesting dialogue. If you're just talking to somebody that's exactly like you, that's the most boring conversation ever. So people who are emotionally and also intellectually incapable of discussing with somebody who's different than them, I don't want to be around you. And I think more people would be able to